There's a message drifting in the air. If you listen, you will notice music everywhere. This bridge is made of hope. This bridge is made of hope. In this world of hunger, war, and strife, we can together, all included, build a better life. This bridge is made of hope. Side by side, hope. This bridge is made of hope. Side by side, hope. This bridge is made of hope. Side by side, hope. This bridge is made of hope. Side by side,
Hello, Ivy here. This week's podcast title is When Sibling Jealousy Becomes a Cause for Concern. Episode 123. Introduction. A recent study in the Journal of Family Psychology found that strained family relationships rooted in jealousy can cause health issues and chronic illness to worsen. One way of thinking about jealousy or envy between siblings is that we think we are competing for limited resources or status. We can all think of people we know, in or outside of our family or friend circle, that this podcast is applicable to. In our case, I would ask that you think of examples of families who are in business together and how any such tension existing in that kind of framework does impact on the business, not to mention the severe impact on the health and well-being of the individuals who feel that they are competing for resources or status. Taking examples to another level, I ask you to think of hereditary monarchies, and in particular, the UK monarchy. The structure of hereditary monarchy is such that the way members within it are treated is based upon order of birth. There is no equality of treatment. The concept is totally alien to that construct. family members are deliberately made to be rubbing rags to the ones above them, particularly the firstborn. Those in the line of succession are treated with deference based on their position in the lineup. The heir to the throne is treated with reverence from the day they are born and are allocated more resources and attention than any of their siblings. Even the rooms that they reside in are larger and better furnished than those allocated to their siblings. The heir is told daily in a variety of ways that they are better and more important than their siblings, and in fact that being royal is better than anyone else outside of the monarchy family. The heir, first in line to the throne, is never refused any request, always told that they are the best and can do no wrong. On the occasions that they transgress and do something that would not be seen in a favourable light, they are never publicly chastised for that deed, and in fact very unlikely that they would be admonished at all. Historically, monarchy families had another person allocated to receive the punishment of the deed carried out by the heir. These individuals were known as whipping boys. Taking an extract from a previous podcast looking at 1,000 plus years of UK monarchies, there was a section on whipping boys and the historical nature of the terminology used, which in itself would create division. Some modern-day historians doubt the concept of whipping boys, but many references that I read 3 years ago when researching into this phenomenon was that it was initially slaves used to take the punishment of the actions of a member of the royal family. And as we know, records of the experiences of slaves, or rather the actions of their white masters, were rarely recorded, or if they were, details were skimmed over the true horrors. Worth keeping that in mind if you ever go searching for the history of whipping boys. Today's monarchy, with Queen Elizabeth II at the helm, remember this is from a previous podcast, has officially adapted and reinvented itself through 2 world wars and social revolution, i.e. most of the publications by royal historians, including the comedy store group of sycophants, write things in order to keep employment and to ensure that indoctrination continues, as it has done through centuries. On a personal perspective, I do not see any evidence of the UK royal family reinventing itself. It has been more of ensuring that the general public see, hear and read the message that the royal family and government officials wish to give. And with the unwritten contract with the media in place since the 1970s, the repetitive nature of that official message has managed to convince some opinions about the state of the nation, etc. The onset and growth of social media has given a wider range of platforms for this propaganda to reach more people in the UK. But what the monarchy failed to remember, those wider platforms include a global audience, and over time, particularly in recent years, the narrative emanating from the UK is no longer seen as the whole truth and nothing but the truth. The UK media efforts to double down on their effort to persuade public opinion in and external to the UK is faltering, and with each increased effort to distract people with one set of information, it has led to increasing numbers of people who had zero interest in royal affairs, but who noticed a concerted drive to tarnish certain members of the royal family over the years, whilst others, who could legitimately attract similar ire had nothing said about them, or very little. It became very obvious that the heirs to the throne in the UK never attracted criticism. It is an unwritten rule. If you study history of the royals in the UK, you will notice the trend to always have a scapegoat as a foil for taking the blame and the punishments for the person above them who was high in the line of succession. Centuries ago, the punishments were extremely harsh, and some led to death by the method of punishment chosen. The scapegoat initially was a member of the household, who, by agreeing to be a scapegoat for a royal, led a life of cosmetic luxury. That is, received good education, dressed well, became the best friend of the heir, but also took the beatings and the whipping and any other punishment for their master. The role eventually got handed on to the next sibling to follow the heir. And the term whipping boy was born. I have previously published a podcast on the whipping boy scenario and how the name came about, and the types of punishment that used to exist, and the use of an actual goat initially, who was sent off into the wilderness carrying baggage on its head and back, and to represent the misdeeds of the heir. The goat was left to die a natural death through the neglect. There are stories in history books about the children of slaves thrown into a crocodile-infested waters in parts of the world as a method of burying the sins of others. Modern-day whipping boys in the UK are those they refer to as the spares. The children deliberately brought into the world purely to be the footstool of the heir. And if anything happened to the heir, whether by death or deed, the spare would be available to step into the shoes and run with the huge role of being the next monarch. One only has to look at the mental health issues that have befallen most spares, and certainly those in the modern era, quoted in the introduction earlier, can hardly be described as adapting or reinventing itself, other than finding ways to describe their purpose to the nation as being useful and important, whilst basically carrying on as they have always done for centuries. People given important roles which affect a wider population than just their family, with no assessment of skill or competency or judgment, but awarded it by order of birth. Equally, subsequent children in those families were treated as footstools and foot soldiers for everyone higher up in the ranks. Of all the supposed troublesome individuals in the history of UK royalty, the person who is deemed to have put the UK monarchy in crisis is the only one who chose to walk away from a toxic environment, and that is Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, for the security of his wife Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and their mental health and that of their family, and to commit the worst sin apparently, a wish to be financially independent of the UK taxpayer. All the other perceived problematic individuals are still within the fold and embrace the UK monarchy, living at taxpayers' expense, including accommodation, security in some cases, and education for their children, and many with questionable activities regarding securing funds from questionable individuals, and creative accounting to help smooth things over whilst the couple who wish to leave and work for a living to be financially independent of the monarchy have been treated like pariahs and traitors, and those responsible need to be held to account for their practices. I am confident that no matter how long it takes, justice will be served. So when you read about the so-called heritage and how the royal family are there by divine right, and that they are all upstanding individuals worthy of your coins, remember that whilst too many of the vulnerable in this country have to choose between heat or food, and in some cases go without both some days of the year, take a stand back and really examine what a monarchy is and what it stands for and how it benefits any modern society today. Then look back at all those who were chastised with various UK monarchies of the past and do your research and evaluate whether they actually committed acts so bad that warranted their subsequent treatment. When you read about the monarchies which have disappeared in the modern era around the world, some have been quite violent, along with some kind of political upheaval. The desire to hang on to a way of life of unearned privilege is strong. Be mindful of that when you read and hear about the UK monarchy, as all of it is stated by people who have a vested interest in the current state of affairs continuing, not least because their income and lifestyle depends upon it. There is a saying that the only people who are against you having boundaries are those who benefit from you having none. In many corners of the globe, aristocrats and nobles, kings and young princes were all deemed to be untouchable and protected by divine right. To lay one's hand on a nobleman or noble child was often a transgression punishable in the most severe way, sometimes even by death. So how then do you go about reprimanding a young boy who also happens to be your king, his heir, or simply a very high-born lad? The answer was a whipping boy. Sibling loyalty and conflict go hand in hand. Even though siblings are some of the longest-lasting relationships, intense loyalty and intense conflict often go hand in hand, and the hurt can run deep. Research published in 2020 in an issue of the Journal of Family Psychology found that sibling conflict among older adults, in part, was associated with symptoms of depression, anxiety, hostility, and loneliness. Those traits carry over as we become adults, says certified life coach Crystal Connor, based in Atlanta, Georgia. We settle in and think, this is the role I have to play. We don't question it, particularly as we get older, because we've been doing it for so long. Reasons adult siblings fight. Birth order. Firstborn children often are viewed as, and sometimes required to be, the responsible ones, expected to follow the rules, serve as role models, and watch over younger siblings. I don't think this applies to UK royals firstborn. Quite the opposite in the case of the current first in line. He does not have to follow rules and definitely is not required to serve as a role model or watch over his younger sibling. Younger children, who can feel overshadowed, tend to be seen as more outgoing and carefree, and as a 2020 study on second-born children by economist Joseph Doyle suggests rebellious. I would argue that the first in line of succession in the UK wanted the role of king because of status, but my personal belief, observing him over his adult years, he seems enamoured with the status but not the trappings. I would not call it work, just the cosmetic aspect of trappings and the play acting as a diplomat. What our current heir seems to prefer is the title and the power, but the freedom to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and that involves a bit of playing diplomat or kingship now and then, peppered between social activities which take priority. Being the Hooray Henry type of individual who will expect deference even among his aristocratic friends, because all he can bring to their table is his title, which engenders people being parasitic types rather than genuinely liking him as a person or anyone else in that type of role. Anyone with power will never really know whether the company they keep is there because of the man or woman they are, or the king or queen that they are. Next one is jealousy. If siblings feel there is a limited amount of something, such as love, support, affection, or basic resources, they may feel as if they need to compete to win what is made available to them over their siblings, especially if their parents weren't particularly generous with love, affection, praise, or support. Personality differences. Biological siblings share genes, but not usually personalities, and that can cause rifts. Experts are more likely to have strong opinions, be social, and be externally motivated, which can come across as domineering. Introverts are more likely to be internally focused, putting a lot of thought into opinions that may not be expressed, which can come across as disinterest or lacking emotion. An ambivert has features of each. Siblings can still get along and respect each other's differences, but sometimes it causes conflict. Estates and wills. Buried wounds frequently resurface along with emotions that arise from grief and loss, and this increases the possibility of a power struggle. When one sibling is the executor of a parent's will, for example, another may feel less loved or that they have less control. In addition, the way a parent has left money, property and other resources to children can cause siblings to disagree about how those resources should be doled out. Things that can drive adult siblings apart. When a parent favours a child, that sibling may become more egocentric, which could lead to estrangement. The golden child places his or her needs above the family as well as its other members, explains psychotherapist Alijon Chowdhury, who practices in Pembroke, Ontario. That's where a sense of entitlement grows, he says, and favoured children become hostile towards those who have different needs than them. Parents need to teach that child that the family comes first and individual needs come second. An additional note here, following on from that psychotherapist. As a member of a UK hereditary monarchy family, by design, the eldest child is treated more favourably by parents and every member of staff. The quality of accommodation at home and school, the same division was made. For example, when the school closed for summer breaks or any of the holiday breaks, the first in line would have suitcases carried out by others, and probably packed by someone else too. When the spare left school, he had bin liners for his belongings, and he carried them himself, and he had no issue with that. There is footage showing this as they were leaving school for the holidays. Sibling jealousy. Two personality types appear to be vulnerable to estrangement: those who are chronically angry and those who nurse grievances. The issues that divide siblings in adulthood, according to psychologist Joel Milgram and the late Professor Helgola Ross, often stem from rivalries over achievement, looks, and intellect. Poor communication skills. The roots of estrangement may be found in poor communication skills, often originating with parents. When parents are unable to express feelings and negotiate differences civilly, they don't model the necessary skills, listening, apologising, cooling off, that show children how to resolve conflicts. As a result, small disagreements can escalate, sometimes exploding into nasty rifts. Adults with poor communication skills may handle stress or strife in a relationship by shutting down and cutting off. Political differences. In today's charged political atmosphere, the smallest offence can shatter a sibling bond made brittle by partisanship. Shared beliefs are built on shared values, and some family foundations have collapsed around socio-political cracks. To mask or not to mask, to vax or not to vax, in-person or remote learning. These and other issues rooted in politics have created or deepened fissures in families and sibling relationships. Alcoholism, addiction, and other mental health issues. Some serious problems, such as mental illness, substance abuse, incest, and violence, may never even be mentioned, much less discussed in a family setting. Yet, they may lead to cut-offs. Aglia's research shows that mental illness and addiction, problems that are often related, aren't typically the sole cause of estrangements, though drugs and alcohol may fuel abuse and domestic violence. These mental health issues are indicators and possibly causes of broader family problems. Narcissistic families and siblings. An exaggerated sense of self-importance and entitlement, arrogance and haughtiness, a tendency to monopolise conversations and belittle inferiors, and general failure to recognise the needs of others. All these characterise a narcissist. Narcissistic parents often create a competitive environment where children are pitted against their siblings. The children may have experienced narcissistic triangulation when a family member tried to control the flow, interpretation, and nuances of communication. Children reared in narcissistic homes rarely feel closely connected as adults, and when one sibling is narcissistic, the relationship is at great risk for estrangement. Job burnout is a type of stress linked to work. It includes being worn out physically or emotionally. Job burnout also may involve feeling useless, powerless and empty. Burnout isn't a medical diagnosis. Some experts think that other conditions, such as depression, are behind burnout. Burnout can raise the risk of depression, but depression and burnout are different and they need different treatments. Certain personality traits may affect the risk of burnout. Other factors, such as past work experiences, can also affect burnout risk. That helps explain why, if two people are dealing with the same job issues, one might have job burnout while the other does not. Whatever the cause, job burnout can affect your physical and mental health. Here are some tips on how to know if you have job burnout and what you can do about it. To find out if you might have job burnout, answer these questions. Do you question the value of your work? Do you drag yourself to work and have trouble getting started? Do you feel removed from your work and the people you work with? Have you lost patience with your co-workers, customers or clients? Do you lack the energy to do your job well? Is it hard to focus on your job? Do you feel little satisfaction from what you get done? Do you feel let down by your job? Do you doubt your skills and abilities? Are you using food, drugs or alcohol to feel better or to numb how you feel? Have your sleep habits changed? Do you have headaches, stomach or bowel problems, or other physical complaints with no known cause? If you have answered yes to any of these questions, you might have job burnout. Think about talking to a healthcare professional or a mental health professional. These symptoms also can be linked to health conditions such as depression. There are different causes of job burnout, and they include lack of control, not having a say in how you do your job, such as your schedule, assignments or workload, can lead to job burnout. Not having what you need to do your work also can add to burnout. Lack of clarity about what's expected of you. If you're not sure what your boss or others want from you, you're not likely to feel like you're doing a good job. Conflicts with others. Maybe you work with an office bully, or you feel that co-workers are against you, or your boss is too involved with your work. These conflicts can add to job stress. Too much or too little to do. Maybe your job is boring or it's so busy you can't keep up with the demands. In these situations, you need a lot of energy to stay focused. This can lead to fatigue and job burnout. Lack of support. If you feel alone at work and in your personal life, you might feel more stressed. Problems with work-life balance. Maybe your work takes up so much of your time and energy that you have nothing left for family and friends. This lack of balance can lead to job burnout. Job burnout risk factors. Having a heavy workload and working long hours, struggling with work-life balance, working in a helping profession such as healthcare that involves a lot of giving to others, feeling of having little or no control over work. Doing nothing about job burnout can make the problems worse. As a result, you might feel drained, not feel able to cope, not be able to sleep, be sad, angry, irritable or not care, use more alcohol or other substances, get heart disease, high blood pressure or type 2 diabetes, be more likely to become ill. There is a section in the article which looks at what burnout often involves in the workplace that you can't control, and there are ways to control how you cope with the stress from that. I'm not going to read all those out. There are a few bullet points with 2 or 3 lines per bullet point, but in the actual reference document that came from, there is far more detail, and that is listed as per usual at the end of the article. There is a impressive image. There's also a slide giving you a summary of the image, which depicts the 5 stages of burnout, which we've just very quickly gone through. 1, the honeymoon phase, high job satisfaction, commitment, energy and creativity. 2, the onset of stress, optimism warning, common stress symptoms affecting you. 3, chronic stress, a marked change in your stress levels. 4, burnout. 5, habitual burnout. All of those, as I said, are in detail in the actual reference source, and there is an image and more detailed paragraphs in the article. This next section is headed, What is Stimming? STIMMING. In this particular section, I would like you to think of people that you know, colleagues or friends, that you feel exhibit one or more of these indicators that I'm going to read through shortly. Also, without naming names, I would also ask you to think of UK monarchy, particularly the working royals, or at least on paper the ones who are meant to be working royals. And within that, I think, well, I know from having researched this and just writing the notes for it, there are a number of sentences, paragraphs in some cases, which immediately, for me, brought certain people to the forefront, and also people that I've known over the years and worked with that I can look back and think, yeah, that was going on. I didn't know that at the time, but going through this over the last couple of weeks or so, certain names came to my mind. So maybe when you hear it, that'll happen with you. If not, it may come to you at a later stage and you'll look back at the notes or the article and think whether or not that still applies. So let's have a look. What is stimming? Stimming encompasses a range of repetitive movements and behaviours, from hand flapping to repeating certain phrases. It can be used as a way to cope with anxious feelings or to self-soothe. Stims are one of the diagnostic characteristics of autism spectrum disorder. Refers to a range of behaviours and symptoms that includes former diagnoses like Asperger's syndrome, which causes difficulties with communicating, learning and behaving. People with other mental health disorders like schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder, or even post-traumatic stress disorder might also stim. Here's what stimming looks like and why people do it, plus its triggers, benefits and risks. Stimming encompasses a range of repetitive movements and behaviours, from hand flapping to repeating certain phrases. It can be used as a way to cope with anxious feelings or to self-soothe. Examples of stimming. When most people think of stimming, they think of motor stimming. These are repetitive motions like hand flapping, rocking your body, spinning, jumping, or moving your fingers. Some motor stims may include self-injurious behaviours, like hitting, skin picking, or scratching. However, stimming includes other repetitive behaviours as well. Some people stim by repeating meaningless words or phrases. This is known as echolalia. Echolalia is seen in children with ASD, as well as in people with other disorders, including stroke. Visual stimming can occur when someone looks at objects in an unusual manner. Another type of stimming involves non-functional behaviours, such as continuously adjusting objects. Why people stim? People with ASD use stimming not only as a way to cope with negative emotions like anxiety, but also as a way to control or to contain positive emotions, some behaviours like rocking. Triggers. There are 4 main triggers of stimming. Overwhelming environment. Being in an environment where there are loud noises and sudden movements can be overwhelming, sometimes to the point of causing anxiety. Sensory overload. Too much stimuli can be confusing and unpredictable. Stimming is used as a way to cope with processing multiple stimuli at once. Noisy thoughts. Excessive and distracting thoughts you can't control are like noise in your head. These thoughts can be caused by external triggers, like a song, and can be rather distressing. They also have the potential to lead to anxiety. Uncontainable emotion. Stimming can help people deal with extreme emotions, be it a lot of anxiety or overwhelming happiness. Not only does stimming appear to be calming, but it also may help prevent extreme emotions like panic attacks. There are theories for why stimming feels good. Research has found that stimming activates neurotransmitters, chemicals in the brain that regulate emotions. For example, while stimming, the brain may release dopamine, glutamate and aspartate, all providing relief or pleasure. Then those satisfying feelings reinforce the need to stim. Different types of stimming have different benefits too. Echolalia, for example, can help people who have difficulty learning language. This type of stim can actually be a positive sign of language development. Do you have a jealous sibling? Siblings often share a distinctive and enduring bond, yet, like any relationship, it can occasionally be marred by jealousy. While sibling rivalry is a common and natural aspect of growing up, persistent jealousy can strain the connection between brothers and sisters. In this article, we delve into the challenges presented by having a jealous sibling and present strategies to nurture understanding and cultivate healthier relationships within the family. Recognizing signs of sibling jealousy is pivotal in addressing the issue. Common indicators may include constant comparisons, passive-aggressive behaviour, seeking attention through negative actions, or even withdrawal from family activities. Sibling rivalry. Most family business founders dream of building a business that can one day enable their offspring to join it and work as a team to ensure its future success. The harsh reality is that most don't make it to the third generation. A contributing factor in family business demise is often sibling conflict. When family business leaders are often able to mediate and manage conflict between their children successfully, many become increasingly concerned about the effects sibling rivalry may have on the health of the company when they start to consider succession planning. At this juncture, an important question becomes what will happen when they're no longer around to handle disputes? Sibling rivalry is often emotionally or strategically motivated, and solutions need to address the underlying cause. Emotion rivalry often stems from competition for parental recognition or approval, which starts when siblings are young, but can extend into adulthood and their position within the family business. When siblings are competing, they are not working together for the good of the enterprise. If sibling rivalry has an emotional root, parent-child relationships need to be examined and worked on. In the business setting, it may be necessary to put measures in place that formalise achievement, recognition and reward, thus removing the perception or influence of parental favouritism. Alternatively, suggest mandating that family members work outside of the family business, allowing them to achieve personal success elsewhere. This is believed can aid siblings in developing respect for themselves and each other's achievements, which then supersede the need for parental approval. While raised in the same family with the same parents and belief systems, siblings often develop conflicting values, management styles, and even risk appetites, all of which can cause strategic rivalry in the family business setting. In this instance, a solid, detailed business plan and implementation of robust family governance rules and structures provide a unified direction for the business and reduce the potential for ambiguity and conflict, even when founders are no longer involved. There is a small section in the article about employing a spouse or spouses into the group and what can happen with a business, good and bad, when that is done. I'm not going to go through that now, that's extra reading if you wish to do so, and it is in the article in more details in the appropriate reference source paper. How to know when it is time to walk away from a sibling. For siblings, there aren't the same kind of expectations of staying in touch. Siblings don't have the same kind of role violation that can produce shame that can serve as a motivator or as an impetus towards repair. What do people tend to experience after changing or severing a sibling relationship, and how can they cope? Typically, the person who ended the relationship isn't in as much pain as the person who was cut off. The person who ends things may feel relieved or happy. It isn't always all upsides, though. Ending the relationship means we're not only losing contact with the parts of them that we don't like, we're also losing contact with the parts we do like. There can be feeling of loss or sadness about giving up or recognising the person may not be willing to change. They might also feel shame and guilt if the other family members are upset with them or pressuring them to be back in contact. You can't just maintain a relationship with your sibling because your parent wants you to. In our lives, we encounter various types of relationships. Some are filled with love, support, and understanding, while others may leave us feeling drained, anxious, and unappreciated. Unfortunately, even in family relationships, can fall into the latter category. It's crucial to recognise when a family member is exhibiting toxic behaviour and to understand the negative impact it can have on our mental health and overall well-being. The first step in recognising a toxic relationship is to pay attention to red flags. These warning signs can manifest in various ways, such as constant criticism, manipulation, gaslighting, or emotional and physical abuse. Toxic people often have a pattern of negative experiences in their relationships, leaving those around them feeling exhausted and emotionally drained. They may belittle your achievements, invalidate your feelings, or constantly create conflict. It's important to trust your instincts and not dismiss these behaviours as harmless. Another key aspect of recognising a toxic relationship is evaluating how you feel when you're around this family member. If spending time with them consistently leaves you feeling anxious, depressed, or invalidated, it may be a sign of a toxic situation. Toxic behaviour erodes our self-esteem and self-worth, leaving us feeling small and insignificant. It's crucial to recognise that you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness regardless of your relationship with someone. Recognising a toxic relationship can be difficult, especially when it involves a family member. However, understanding the consequences of staying in such a relationship is crucial for our mental health and overall happiness. Taking the first step towards recognising toxic behaviour and setting healthy boundaries is the best thing we can do for ourselves. Remember, you deserve to be surrounded by healthy love and support, and sometimes that means creating distance from toxic people in order to find peace and happiness in your life. In order to protect our mental and emotional well-being, it's crucial to recognise the consequences of staying in a toxic relationship and take the necessary steps to break free from it. It's never easy to let go of a family member or someone we once cared deeply for, but the long-term damage of staying in a toxic dynamic far outweighs the temporary discomfort of letting go. By setting boundaries, seeking professional help, and building a support system of positive relationships, we can move on from toxic relationships and create a healthier, happier future for ourselves. Remember, you deserve to be surrounded by love, respect, and support. And breaking free from toxic relationships is the first step towards reclaiming your own happiness and well-being. That's it for this week. I hope you found that of interest. I hope at some point in the future you look through some or all of the reference sources, and hopefully it will give you food for thought for those that you come into contact with, work or family. Doesn't matter. They'll just be people that you know, come across, and hopefully you will recognise if this behaviour is going on around you. You will recognise the red flags and you'll recognise the triggers. And some of the unspoken actions, you will again recognise when someone is doing that. You will spot it, you will notice the frequency, what is happening, and you'll recognise where it could lead. So, look forward as usual to hearing your thoughts after the podcast airs on Sunday and throughout the following week. So speak to you soon. It's bye from me. Bye from Ivy. Bye.
2, 3. In the depths of silence, where echoes remain, you were the sunrise, and I was the rain. A collision of souls, opposing in flight. I was the darkness, you yearned for the light. Now you're gone, and I'm losing my mind, losing my mind, I'm losing my mind. Now you're gone. Why did you cut me up, bring me out, and leave me high and dry? You were the laughter that kept me alive. You were hello, and I was goodbye. An ember that flickered, that faded away. You were the summer, I was that same old shit in me. Now you're gone, and I'm losing my mind, losing my mind, losing my mind. Why did you cut me up, bring me out, and leave me high and dry? Now you're gone. Now you're gone. That kept me alive. I said hold on, you said goodbye.